And I would plead with you to respect the voice of Kenyans and not to impose your thoughts and your will on the people of Kenya.
Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta awe rais wa Kenya na Bwana William Ruto awe makamu wake. Munaunga mkono ama hamuungi mkono?
You will not stop us. Ruto Uhuru warned rivals as they formalize their political union. ODM's show of might as Raila woos the coastal vote.
Why are you fighting him? Why are you fighting him?
Confusion as nurses' strike is set to kick off tomorrow. Over 1,000 traffic offenders arrested as new laws start to bite. Good evening, I'm Edith Kimani. We begin this bulletin with the very latest in politics, and Prime Minister Raila Odinga's Orange Party may go it alone in next year's poll. Now, the Prime Minister indicated that ODM is still an incredible force on its own after the much-hyped ODM Wiper pre-election pact appeared distant on Sunday. Now, Wiper leaders, Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, snubbed an ODM rally at Tononoka grounds in Mombasa. ODM and Wiper Party principals were reportedly set to unveil the pact at the rally to counter that of Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta and Eldoret North Member of Parliament William Ruto.
It was billed as a historic political rally at the historic Tononoka grounds in Mombasa, the unveiling of ODM Wiper Pact. But Wiper bigwigs expected at the rally to endorse and seal the deal were missing in action. KTN reliably established by Sunday midday that the Wiper negotiating team of Education Minister Mutula Kilonzo, Wiper Chairman David Musila and Johnston Muthama would snub the rally. This after Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka recanted the deal. Kalonzo equally gave the rally a wide berth. Sources say Raila and Kalonzo are set to meet tonight in efforts to strike a deal.
Na ikuwe ni deal ni Raila Odinga. Hii mambo ingine hawa awachane nayo na kuja tufanye kazi tuende mbele.
Suffering a blow at securing a unity pact 2 days to the submission deadline of coalition agreements, ODM has raised doubts to the longevity of the coalitions being crafted, saying they are built on quicksand.
Tumeona nyoka imejivingirisha. Tumeona sasa hapa tuko na timu yetu siafu watu wa Mombasa, kina Joho na Kajembe na Kingi, naambia shikeni mkia yake.
Labda tumeanza pole, lakini najua ya kwamba pole hiyo yetu itatufikisha kule kwenye ikulu.
URB has been swallowed completely by DNA. Join us or perish.
Nonetheless, ODM MPs discredited the crystallization of a unity pact sealed today between Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta and Eldoret North MP William Ruto to contest on a joint ticket. The onslaught led by Lands Minister James Orengo lumped the two as a fellowship of suspects, subjecting Kenyans to a referendum on the ICC.
In Kenya, if you vote out of fear, it's because you fear justice. There are those who fear justice and want Kenya to be responsible for their own misdeeds. That cannot happen.
Ruto si waziri. Mheshimiwa Kenyatta si waziri kwa sababu ya ile kesi kule Uholanzi. Ikiwa huwezi kuwa waziri kwa sababu ya sheria na desturi za Kenya, ni vipi unaweza kuwa rais wa Kenya?
To consolidate its base from further weakening and surmount pressure from rival alliances, ODM party leader Raila Odinga has moved to forestall any fallout in party primaries to nominate its flag bearers to contest for various positions. Raila says the nomination process will be free and fair. The PM equally appealed to his coastal supporters, saying his ODM party will resolve outstanding land issues.
You cannot be thrown out. Lazima muonyeshe mnapelekwa wapi.
Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, whose party is being courted by ODM, speaking in Suswa Saturday evening, reaffirmed he will not give up his presidential bid for any election pact. A tough-talking Kalonzo asserted that anyone who enters into an alliance with his Wiper party must be ready to take the position of running mate or even lower.
Kibaki anastaafu na mimi ni makamu wa rais miaka 5. Nataka niwaulize, nina haki ama sina haki ya kutafuta kiti cha rais? Ate mimi nitakuwa namba 2 sijui ya nani na nani. Kwa nini wao hapana kuwa namba 2 yangu? Sina mna hiyo.
With the December 4th deadline only 2 days away and one pact in sight, that is Uhuru and Ruto's, efforts to build consensus among the ODM and Wiper parties appears to be facing serious hurdles.
The Orange Party is bracing chills of a flopped coalition deal with Wiper Democratic Movement. But on the same breath, ODM has dismissed their ongoing coalition talks, saying they are based loosely on tribal basis. Under the stewardship of the PM, ODM says single-handedly it is still a force to reckon in the next year's polls. Samogina, KTN, Tononoka Grounds, Mombasa.
Well, it's almost impossible to talk about the Tononoka rally without mentioning the Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto merger that happened this afternoon at Nakuru's Afraha Stadium. Now, the two will run on a joint ticket in next year's general election as president and vice president, respectively. That official announcement was made today, and the two say that the ICC cases facing them will not interfere with their ambition to govern the country. While Sophia Wanuna and Aaron Ocheng are currently in Nakuru and will be joining them in just a short while. But right now, we have a guest in studio, Mr. Adam Zolo, who is a political analyst, to help us interrogate these issues of the alliances. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's just begin with that issue of ODM and trying to woo Kalonzo. Why is he so appealing at the moment, Kalonzo Musyoka?
Well, I think that initially the conventional wisdom was that ODM was on one side and G7 alliance was on one side. But it happens that the Uhuru-Ruto pact kind of led to acrimony, whereby Kalonzo felt that he was being left out. So ODM decided that we can price him away from the G7 side and maybe walk away with this game in the first round easily. And therefore, they went out for him. But it looks like they're saying, if we don't get him, the status quo remains.
All right, and what would be the implication of that if Kalonzo indeed does not get into a merger with ODM?
The implication is that it becomes more likely that we might have 4 serious presidential candidates, and that would be in terms of hierarchy. You have the ODM, then you have the URP, TNA pact, then you have UDF and Wiper coming a little bit on the lower scale. Yeah.
But we've just had the Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka saying that he is better than being a running mate. He's actually mentioned the fact that he's a vice president having the top seat in government, one of the top seats in government, and saying that he's not going to settle for less. In fact, let me just find a quote here that he mentioned. It was quoted in the Standard this morning. I hear some people are working on an arrangement that will make me a running mate to someone. That is not so. I will be naming my running mate soon.
He might be the vice president, but he's also a vice president who has not been endorsed by the sitting president. So it's time that he came to political reality. As it stands now, and with the new constitutional rules, which requires 50% plus 1, it would mean that if ever there was a runoff, certainly it would not be Kalonzo Musyoka, one of the two. It would be Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. And the moment that reality hits him, I'm not still counting out that you might have a last-minute deal between either Raila and Kalonzo or Mudavadi and Kalonzo. But Mudavadi and Kalonzo is very unlikely.
Okay, let me just put you on the spot here. If you were to say realistically, what are the chances of Kalonzo becoming president if he goes at it by himself?
None. 0.
All right. Let's now look at the other alliance that everyone seems to be talking about. It's being called the winning team. Uhuru-Ruto is what they're calling themselves. Do you believe that they are the winning team?
I don't believe. I think that if you look at the way the race has been tailored so far, then you'll say that even a William Ruto and Uhuru ticket still will have a hard time hitting the 50% plus one mark. Remember, that's the whole reason why they had the G7 alliance. But when they cut the deal between URP and TNA, you have seen a kind of dismembering starting to occur. New Ford Kenya is now out, Wiper is out, and UDF, which was warming up, is also by itself. What that means, and if you go by the opinion polls, then it means that they still fall short of the 50%. So what I would say is that at the moment, maybe things might change. We still have nearly 3 months to go.
Yeah.
Things might change, but as it stands now, I think none of the coalitions or even one single party can claim that they can get the 50% plus one.
All right, but as it stands, it seems to be an open secret that Uhuru and Ruto are coming together so that they can get the numbers in terms of votes. But what is happening to the issues? Who is talking about what is really affecting Kenyans? And how does that affect the people who are going to vote for them?
Look, true, issues have to be talked about. But Kenya also is a very ethnicized society. If you look at the URP TNA ticket, they can say that we are coming together to unite the country. But the truth of the matter is that if you look at the build-up to today's rally, William Ruto was basically in the Kalenjin heartland, basically telling them that this deal is good for the Kalenjin. So we can't run away from that. That issues will be talked about, but also ethnic calculations will also be there. And I think it's upon Kenyans to decide, do they want to vote for ethnic coalition? Do they want to vote for issues? It's for Kenyans to decide, because it's them that finally will determine who enters the house on the hill.
All right, and Mr. Olo, before I let you go, a final question here. A lot of people are saying that William Ruto is finding it extremely difficult to sell this merger to the people in the Rift Valley. And in the rally today, which Sophia Wanuno is about to bring us all the details to, he did say that the journey to unite the nation has started. That's William Ruto. And Uhuru Kenyatta says, our work is to preach peace and make sure no blood is spilled. And it's also interesting that their slogan is Umoja Kenya. They seem to really be talking about peace and bringing people together. Are they playing on people's fears here?
Well, I think what they are taking into account is this, that since we got back to multipartism, it's only the 2002 elections where we did not have any ethnic clashes. In 1992, we had ethnic clashes. The heartland was Rift Valley. In 1997, we had ethnic clashes. The heartland was Rift Valley. In 2007, we had ethnic clashes. The heartland again was Rift Valley. And you look at it this way, that every time the Kalenjin and the Kikuyu vote differently, there's always ethnic clashes. When they voted together, for example, in 2002, whereby under the guidance of Moi, they voted for Uhuru Kenyatta, then there were no ethnic clashes. I think that's what they are implying. Whether the people will buy in that they need to be together for the sake of that is another thing altogether.
Let's wind up the interview there. Thank you so much for coming into the studio this evening. Adam Zolo, he's a political analyst joining us to just dissect and interrogate the issues that are coming up after that Ruto-Uhuru merger. And speaking of that, Sophia Wanuna and Aaron Ochieng are currently camped at Afraha Stadium, I beg your pardon, where they've been following the unfolding of events there, and they now bring us the very latest.
Afraha Open Grounds in Nakuru town was the venue of a historic announcement where Eldoret North MP William Ruto officially dropped his presidential bid in favor of Uhuru Kenyatta. The pre-election deal between the two parties, URP and TNA, is seeing Uhuru Kenyatta run as president and William Ruto as vice president come 4th of March general election.
Tukiwa hapa Nakuru, nataka niwaulize tu swali moja. Mumetupatia mimi na Mheshimiwa Ruto nafasi tuende tukapiganie hiyo kiti. Mumepatia vyama vyetu viwili nafasi tuende tukaongee na viongozi wengine tuwashirikishe katika muungano wetu. Tuwe na muungano wa Wakenya. Nionyesheni kwa mikono kama hivyo ndivyo mungependa tufanye.
Wale ambao hawakujua ya kwamba inawezekana jamii za Rift Valley wafanye kazi pamoja, ati haiwezekani Wakikuyu na Wakalenjin kupiga kura pamoja, tunawaambia leo kutoka Nakuru, hiyo tutafanya mwaka huu.
Although details of the agreed deal is still scanty, sources say in exchange for the presidency, Ruto's URP will be running away with a major share of the key ministries, official leader of majority in the House, together with a slot for the Speaker of the National Assembly. The rally was attended in big numbers by members of parliament and aspirants allied to TNA and URP.
Watu wamejaa wengi sana mpaka sioni mwisho kule. Nafikiri runinga zionyeshe kila mahali, na nataka muonue mkono kuwa sisi mwaka ujao tutaunda serikali. Kwa serikali!
Kama mnataka kujua Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta na Mheshimiwa William Ruto wanastahili kusimama, basi hiyo maamuzi muilete kwa raia. We want the people of Kenya to decide.
Mheshimiwa Uhuru na Ruto wana haki, na naamini ya kwamba vitendawili vyote vimetajwa, kitendawili kimoja tu ndio wamekosa kutaja. Ni nani atakaye kuwa rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya, rais wa 4? Na ni nani atakuwa makamu wa rais mwaka 2003? Asanteni sana.
TNA, URP wamefanya nini? Wameamua.
The pending trial at the ICC did not pass unmentioned, with Ruto and Uhuru saying it is a process that will not deter their ambition. The two say today is the beginning of a similar rallies which will be held throughout the country. It is now official. It will be a Uhuru Kenyatta William Ruto ticket come March 4th general election. And they are saying ICC should not be used as a campaign against them. Aaron Ochieng, KTN, at the Afraha Stadium in Nakuru.
Aaron Ching bringing us the details of earlier this afternoon, but Sophia Wanuna has the very latest, and she now joins us live from Nakuru in Afraha Stadium. Sophia Wanuna, what's going on your side?
All right, thank you, Edith. We are coming to you live from Nakuru, the Afraha Stadium. Now, although the Raila coming together, Raila and Kalonzo, the Tononoka grounds today hit a snag, it was pomp and color here at the Afraha Stadium. It is now definitely official, albeit a very wet Nakuru. Neither the mood was dampened nor the agenda changed. Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto will contest the presidency next year on a joint ticket. Uhuru Ruto 2013 is what they're dubbing that ticket. Of course, many, as you've seen in that story by Aaron Ochieng, so many people turning up. At least about 100 MPs flanked those two as they talked about what they intend to do for this country. This, of course, coming just a day before they launched the deadline of the depositing of the pre-election pacts with the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Of course, our sources within the party say that they should be depositing that pact tomorrow with the IEBC. Now, to talk more about that agreement, I'm now joined by Joseph Omondi, who is CEO Midriff to Human Rights Network. Thank you very much, Joseph, for coming to talk to us. Very significant that this deal has been struck, but more so, why Nakuru? Because anywhere else they would have gone and held this rally, made the announcement that they will be working together, but why did they decide on Nakuru?
Thanks a lot, Sophia. They decided in Nakuru, one, because Nakuru is a cosmopolitan area, and therefore, if you speak in Nakuru, you are speaking to all the communities in Nakuru. Two, Nakuru is the center and is the headquarters of Rift Valley province. And therefore, Ruto wanted to make a political statement that he is in charge of Rift Valley. Right. Three, Nakuru is strategically positioned. If you speak in Nakuru, you have spoken to all of the country.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, and one of the things that they have highlighted even today is that the coming together of the two communities, especially Central and Kalenjin, and of course more others that they say will be joining them, but for those two in particular, bring about reconciliation. Do you see that happening, especially here in Nakuru, for the two communities? Is the reconciliation going to work? And if it will it last?
What we can say is that at the political level, yes, because we have witnessed post-election violence 92, 97, and 2007. So for political purposes, it will serve that particular purpose. But for social, we still have land grievances, and therefore we are not sure about. Now, if it does not last, what we are saying as a community is, we should not be pegging our hopes on reconciliation on political pacts, but the communities.
All right, so this might not be might not bring about that reconciliation, full and perfect reconciliation.
It's political reconciliation.
All right, it has been a hard sell for William Ruto selling this agreement, selling this alliance to the Rift Valley region. Why is that? Is it that just because he is going to be going in as deputy president?
Ruto, when he formed URP, after he had left ODM, he went to UDM and then formed URP. He told his people he's going up to the ballot. So for political purposes, his people were ready to support him for the first round. Then they see what happens. And therefore, they were a little bit skeptical about him going to form a pact and therefore being a running mate of somebody else. And therefore, there is a lobby youth group in Rift Valley called Achichia Wendi Kitio, which means that you will go there alone. So he has some pockets of resistance about this particular alliance, and therefore it shows that the whole of Rift Valley won't go in the same basket. Maybe they might share it with the Raila taking a smaller percentage.
Yes, and with that you have answered my final question, which that would it erode some of his support in the Rift Valley? So you think some of it will go to Raila and he might not get all the votes in the basket for this alliance?
Definitely, some votes will go to Raila. The way the situation is, they wanted him to go first round, then weigh the situation, then support whoever he can support if he does not go through in the first round.
Joseph Omondi, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. We have been speaking to Joseph Omondi. He is CEO of Midrift Human Rights Network, just breaking it down a little bit for us on what this deal means. Now, one of the things that they reiterated at the rally earlier here today, and even the members of parliament who accompanied the two, is calling upon their supporters, mostly the youth, to turn up and register to be voters, because bottom line, at the end of the day, after all has been said and done, it's all about that all-important vote. So 16 days to go to the close of voter registration. So even we here at KTN urging everybody, if you have not registered, do go out and register your vote. Your future, as IBC has been saying. Thank you very much from us and the team here in Nakuru. Back to you, Edith.
Thank you very much, Sophia Wanuna, bringing us the very latest from the Afraha Stadium and urging everyone to register as a voter. I for sure have. But to other politics of the day, it's just hours before the deadline for political parties to deposit their agreements with the registrar of political parties. And parties have been engaging in closed-door meetings even as they tear into their rivals. Well, several parties have shown indications that they want to work together, but are cautioning that ethnicity could undermine the spirit of coalition building. This and more in our political roundup.
Speaking to journalists after attending a church service at St. Eagle's Church in Karen, Party of Action presidential aspirant Raphael Tuju urged Kenyans to remain focused despite the rapidly shifting political landscape.
The greatest and most important thing as a country we must not do is to have coalitions which are based on who we hate and who we fear.
As the Power Party leader seeks to come into a pre-election agreement with Kenya National Congress Party leader Peter Kenneth, Musalia Mudavadi joined Peter Kenneth at a church service at PCEA Rudhigitu, Kikuyu in Kiambu County, where both leaders preached against tribalism.
It's not about individuals, it's not about famousness, it's about Kenyans who will come together to ensure they deliver services that Kenyans deserve.
In Narok, Restore and Build Kenya presidential hopeful Professor James Ole Kiapi questioned formation of some political alliances, terming them alliance of convenience. Kiapi said voting in any coalition will deprive Kenyans any meaningful development, citing wrangles witnessed in the current coalition government.
Na shida za Kenya zimekuwa shida za kuhangaisha watu wa Kenya. Ati siasa ni ya kawaida, muungano ya kabila. Tribal alliances are an enemy of the people of Kenya.
Kiapi was speaking at Redeemed Gospel Church House of Miracles in Narok today, where he fellowshipped. Mohammed Mahmoud, KTN.
Let's now shift gears to the health industry, where the strike called by the Kenya National Union of Nurses is set to kick off at midnight. However, several unions representing nurses have distanced themselves from the strike, saying that nurses will be on duty on Monday and that the strike is illegal. Well, here's KTN's Angel Katusia with that story.
The army has been charged. The arsenals are now there. They are being polished. And at 12:001, the army will leave.
It is a call that was preceded by drama at the Kenyatta National Hospital between the union officials and the hospital administration. The Kenya National Union of Nurses claims 2 of their officials had been illegally arrested and detained at the orders of the hospital's administration. Claims that were refuted by KNH, saying the 2 officials had been required to write a statement at the hospital security office after they were allegedly found distributing leaflets inciting nurses at the hospital to join in the strike.
Let it be on record that nobody has been arrested from our staff and other people who are present here.
Solidarity forever. The KNUN leadership, clearly enraged by the detention of their members, reiterated their resolve to paralyze operations at all public hospitals will not be dampened by what they termed as harassment. They say the Monday strike will persist until the demands are met. Top in the list is registration of the union and a review of their allowances.
And the first stop on Monday shall be here. We shall live here as we go to collect our certificate from the Minister of Labor.
But even as the organizers of the strike vowed to make the strike threats real, the Kenya Union of Civil Servants and the Kenya Union of Domestic, Hotel, Educational Institution, Hospitals and Allied Workers, true umbrella bodies representing nurses, say their members will be on duty on Monday.
Union of Kenya Civil Servants apparently is the only legally mandated union. Is the only legally mandated union to represent all civil servants, and nurses are captured since they are also civil servants.
The Kenya Progressive Nurses Association has also distanced itself from the strike, terming it illegal.
The body which has called the strike itself, the body is not registered. It has no legitimate to call a strike in this country.
Angel Katusa, KTN, Sunday night.
If you're fond of overlapping, overspeeding, driving while you're under the influence, or chatting on your phone while driving, then this is a number you want to remember: 1,133. This is just how many motorists have been arrested so far since the new traffic laws were enforced. While in some areas matatu operators were still on strike over the laws, police are still adamant that the new laws will not be withdrawn. Well, tonight our reporter Asha Mulu brings us exclusive pictures of how motorists and pedestrians are still violating the new rules on the road.
Into the implementation of the new traffic laws, and already more than 1,000 motorists and pedestrians have been arrested for committing traffic offences. Now today we spend the day with Deputy Traffic Commandant just to see how motorists are receiving the new laws and how police officers are dealing with them. We opted to restrict our experiment to the recently unveiled Thika Superhighway, with all the required traffic signs, designated pedestrian crossing areas, and even speed limit signage. This road should easily be a motorist's heaven under the new traffic rules. At least that's what we thought. We were welcomed by matatus obstructing other motorists, an offence that would attract a fine of up to 50,000 shillings under the new laws. motorcycle operators without the required gear riding in the wrong direction, and even pedestrians doing this. And at some point, even those expected to enforce these new laws were also committing traffic offenses. Just as we were starting our interview, we had to interrupt the deputy traffic commandant due to such motorists.
You see this one now? This is very wrong.
The commandant tells us that are notorious for breaking the law along the highway. We go to the Pangani flyover and witness an area notorious with motorists with personal cars. In just 15 minutes, the commandant has already warned many motorists for taking a wrong turn and resorts to calling for backup. And when the police officers finally arrive, some of those found on the wrong decide to speed off, endangering the lives of those in their vehicles. Others are not so lucky. The traffic police are cautioning Kenyans to maintain the speed limits or face the new laws, especially in urban areas.
On a dual carriage road, you are required on a private car to drive up to a maximum of 110 kilometers per hour. And then on the other roads, you travel at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour. But for public service vehicles, all of them, they have up to 100 and they have up to 80 kilometers per hour.
While the media can do their best to sensitize the public on the new traffic rules, the traffic police say that ignorance will not be taken as a valid excuse for those found on the wrong side of the law. So in the meantime, your best decision would perhaps be reading and understanding the new law and of course adhering to it. Asha Mwilu for KTN in Nairobi.
If any of those scenes seem familiar because you do them, let me just remind you that number 1,133 people arrested in 48 hours. You could be in the next batch, so watch out. But to matters of elections, and Kenyans living in the diaspora have yet again threatened to sue the government for locking them out of next year's general election. Now, this comes after the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Chairman Isaac Hassan said that IEBC will only register Kenyans living in the East African community. IEBC says conducting the exercise in the wider diaspora would be costly and cumbersome. KTN's Catherine Omwando has the latest on this development.
Kenyans living in the diaspora had their hopes dashed when the Independent and Electoral Boundaries Commission's chairman Isaac Hassan confirmed that IEBC will not register Kenyan voters living outside the East African community. One of the major reasons is that it would be a logistical nightmare for IEBC and those in the diaspora.
Of course, implementing diaspora registration in foreign countries, there are logistical problems, and so it's a big challenge, and of course, it's involving also economically.
The Foreign Affairs Ministry can only account for 170,000 Kenyans living abroad, yet it is known that those living outside the country could be 10 times more than this number. The shutting out of the diaspora voters has sparked off anger and debate. Those against the government's decision to leave out millions of Kenyans in next year's polls made their thoughts public in the social media, where many compared Kenya to South Sudan. In 2011, every Sudanese old enough to vote was allowed to poll in the referendum that gave South Sudan its independence. Several Kenyans living abroad cannot register with the Kenyan embassies of the countries they live and work in due to logistical challenges. IEBC says it would equally be difficult to find and register such voters for next year's elections. Even if IEBC was to set up registration points at the Kenyan embassies throughout the world, it would still be a tedious task given that it's only 12 weeks to the polls.
This is playing with the people's feeling.
Take, for example, the United States of America, which is known to be home to the largest diaspora population. In the USA, the Kenyan embassy is in Washington, D.C. There are 2 more consulates in New York and Los Angeles. If IEBC was to set up a registration and voting station at the embassy and the consulates, every Kenyan living across USA would have to make their way down to the 3 states to register and vote. For some, it would be easy, but for those living across the country, it would be a logistical and financial nightmare.
Thank you.
By allowing those living in Tanzania, Uganda and Rwanda to vote, IEBC could be using this as a learning curve to ensure that all Kenyans in the diaspora vote in the following general elections, projected to be in 2017. Some Kenyans living abroad have threatened to sue the government for not letting them exercise their rights to equal suffrage. 2 weeks ago, the High Court threw out a similar case.
What the court said is that, and what the Constitution of Kenya says is that diaspora voting must be realized progressively. What it means is that it can't be realized at one go. And progressively means that, you know, the drafters of the Constitution knew that in the first election there would be challenges in implementing diaspora voting.
Kenyans in East Africa will have a chance to register as voters from Monday. The registration process has reached midway. IEBC still hopes to register an approximate 18 million voters by the time the process is concluded. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
Welcome back to KTN Sunday Night. We're glad you're still watching. Now, November was Adoption Awareness Month in Kenya, but not many people know this because adoption is not a popular topic in the country. Many misconceptions exist on the process, especially about the people who choose to adopt and even the adopted children themselves. Well, I spent a day with a mother of 3. 2 of her children are adopted and 1 of them has cerebral palsy. And I found out that the myths over adoption are just that, myths. Here's the story. It is impossible to spend more than 5 minutes with Susan Shimba without hearing about her 3 children. Like many mothers, she is particularly proud of her 2 younger sons.
Everything, like what else?
Luki, or Dr. Luki as he likes to call himself, is 3 years old, while Solomon is a year older.
No!
My first meeting with Susan was at the New Life Children's Home, the same place she met her 2 boys. Susan is yet to complete the adoption process for Luki, although she says she was never looking to adopt.
I was trying to tell anyone I knew, please take this baby so that I can see him grow up. Then Mom said, we'll take him. I was like, really? Because by that time even the law didn't allow for single mothers to adopt boys.
Back home, Solo, as they call him, offers warm entertainment to the crew.
Solo! So now who is your mommy? Show me your mommy. Where is mommy? Are you sure? Where's your sister? Show me your sister. Wow!
Solomon's adoption process is complete, but unlike Luki, he did not attract as many congratulatory messages.
You're cheating!
Many people questioned me, most of them behind my back, and a number of them have come forth after to say, we said ABCD about you, but now we realize that you did the right thing. They actually called me crazy. The majority called me crazy, especially for picking up Solomon. That surprised me, and not just surprised me, that hurt me, because I thought, if I didn't take Solomon, where do you think my baby would be?
People think adoption is very expensive, that it's for the very wealthy people, that the costs related are quite high, which is a big myth. People also think that adoption is just meant for couples who cannot have a child.
Until everybody knows, then I don't think enough people know. So part of our job and what we're doing here is just to make sure that as many people as possible.
Myths notwithstanding, the number of those adopting children, especially Kenyans, is going up. That is largely because the Adoption Act now makes the process much easier. The adoption process begins with the parents visiting an adoption agency and declaring their interest to adopt. After that, they are assessed before being allowed to identify a child for adoption. What follows is known as a placement period, where for 3 months, the adoption agency and the children's home assess how the child has bonded with its new parents.
We've got to prepare these parents psychologically for adoption. It's a very exciting process, but also comes with its own challenges and realities, and these families must be really prepared for this.
Adults over the age of 27 are allowed to adopt, but that right does not extend to persons found to be mentally unstable, persons convicted or charged with child abuse, homosexuals, and single male foreigners.
We take babies from the hospitals, and then thirdly, they come to us from the police station, where technically these are known as harsh abandonments, where a child has just been left somewhere.
Most cases end much like Susan's, with children in stable and happy families. When I ask how her life has changed since she got the 2 boys,
What color is your hair?
Every morning, I look at their faces. I mean, I just marvel that God would trust me with such beautiful, beautiful children.
And I will pop! And I will blow the house down! You know he's not quads, eh?
Well, away from those adorable children, it's now time for Case Files. Case Files, our investigative weekly TV crime series. It is a story of a woman who claims her cousin doused herself with paraffin and set herself on fire. We'll follow the story of a woman who killed her cousin because she found her in a compromising situation in the house of a man she called husband and father to her children.
She was 14 years old when her cousin accused her of having an affair with her husband. The story of two cousins turned enemies and a murder most foul. The state versus Catherine Mukonyo. This is Case Files. When Case Files got to the correctional facility that is Langata Women's Prison, we met a mother conversing with a daughter. Inmates convicted and sentenced for capital offenses are not allowed to the visitors area. The only channel of communication is through the glass window. A mother separated from a daughter serving time for a murder she committed 6 years ago. Catherine Mukonyo Mutiso was 2 years ago sent to jail for 20 years for murdering Ruth Siombua. At the time of the murder, her victim was 14 years old.
Alikuwa anaishi na sister yake. Mimi nikamchukua kwa sister yake. Nikaanza kukaa naye. Sister yake akaniambia kuliko niandike mfanyikazi, nichukue mfanyikazi mwingine, nichukue huyo sister yake niishi na yeye. Nikaanza kuishi na yeye. Nilikuwa hata namlipa. Hatujawahi kwa sana na hiyo kasi yangu. Hata mzee wangu alikuwa anaosha manguo na huyo msichana. Mimi ndio nilikuwa naosha manguo za mzee wangu. Mimi mwenyewe. Hata chakula angekula kama siko kwa nyumba mzee wangu.
Na ikakuaje? Kazi yako kuchukua bwanangu.
Ndio nishindwa baadaye venye ilikuja ikakuwa.
All was well until sometime in 2006 when Catherine's husband asked her to leave Nairobi for her upcountry home. Catherine told Case Files she was not pleased.
Akunipea alafu alistukia tu akaniambia niende nikaishi ushago. Nikaona ni ngumu.
Na hiyo siku naenda kuambiwa ndio ushago, cousin yangu alikuwa kwa nyumba yako.
Cousin yangu alikuwa bado kwa nyumba yangu.
Mukonyo claims she left Nairobi from Mbeere, where she stayed with her mother until March 2007, when she got word from a close family friend that someone was putting up in her house. She traveled to Nairobi.
Ya sasa mimi nikaambia kijana mwingine anaitwa Kimambi akuja anipeleke, niende nikachukue kasini yangu. Yenye tulienda kasini yangu nikamkuta amelala kwa kitanda, mlango ipo imefungwa, ilikuwa tu imerudishwa. Nikafunga nikaingia ndani. Kuingia nilikuta kasini yangu amelala kwa kitanda yangu. Kwa kitanda yangu mzee hapo alikuwa kazi. Alikuwa anaendanga kazi mapema. Nikamuuliza ni nini unafanya huko? Hakunijibu. Akanyamaza, ndio baadaye akasema yeye aliendanga kuishi huko kwa mzee wangu. Sasa hapo kasini yangu ndio nilimwambia hapo kwa nyumba niende nipigie mama yangu simu wakuja na polisi. Baada venye mimi nilirudisha mlango kuenda kasini yangu alijimwagilia mafuta taa na akajakisha moto.
Neighbors noticed smoke in the house, rushed to the scene and discovered Ruth Siombua, Catherine Mukonyo's cousin, was on fire. They had her rushed to hospital, but she died a week later. Catherine was arrested and charged with the murder of her cousin. Catherine says she did not set her cousin on fire. Her cousin doused herself with paraffin before setting herself on fire.
Wakati yangu venye aliulizwa, alisema alijichoma juu aliona ni aibu kwa watu wa nyumbani kifamilia. Mimi nilimkuta kwa nyumba yangu.
But the courts placed Catherine at the scene of the murder. A witness who testified during the 4-year murder trial told the court it's Catherine Mukonyo who came shouting and abusing the 14-year-old Siombua. No one saw Catherine set Ruth on fire, but a High Court judge said in part, Though the Learned Counsel described the crime as that of passion, the position of the court is the accused left her emotions to make a wrong and fatal decision. Catherine, according to the court, was enraged because she discovered her cousin was staying with the husband. Catherine's claims that it was Ruth who set herself on fire could not grant her freedom. Before sending her to jail for the murder of Siombua, Justice Muga Pondi ruled, the circumstantial evidence on record is very clear. It shows a woman who was not only angry but hell-bent to punish her own cousin.
Mimi nilimchoma, ni alijichoma time mwenye alisema. Hata watu wa nyumbani wazazi wake aliwaambia ni alijichoma. Wazazi wake walikuwa wakuja watoe defense witness. Wakakuja wakaingia kwa koti nikitoa defense. Wakaambia wawezi itoa juu wanasikia venye nimeongea. Hii kakata.
The court could hear none of it. The man she fought over has never showed up at Langata Women's Prison.
Alikuwa ananipenda. Hajawahi kuja, alikuwa anakujanga koti. Alikuwa anakujanga kotini lakini hatukuwa tunaongea wakati wa kesi.
Sasa unasikiaje kupoteza bwana?
Nasikia vibaya.
Catherine has 18 more years behind bars. The man has been at committing maximum prison for the last 22 years now. He strongly believes foreigners killed his neighbor. Denson Sarigo for Case Files.
Make sure you catch up with Denison Sarigo next Sunday for the continuing series of Case Files. James Mwangi, Equity Group Chief Executive, needs no introduction in Kenya. I mean, he's credited with transforming the banking sector and growing Equity Bank from a building society into one of the 5 largest commercial banks in Kenya. Last Thursday, he added another feather to his cap. He is this year's Forbes Africa Person of the Year. He is our focus on tonight's Money and Power.
Money and Power, in association with Johnny Walker.
It's more memorable than the biggest parties the circuit can throw. You can't buy it, you can never guarantee it.
James Mwangi, Equity Bank Group Chief Executive, beat a competition from renowned persons in the continent to be fitted as the Forbes Africa Person of the Year 2012.
Aliko Dangote is the richest man in Africa.
Some of the people who are in contention with him were Aliko Dangote, Africa's richest man, Tony Elumelu, founder and chairman of Heirs Holdings, Joyce Banda, the president of Malawi, and Stephen Saad, co-founder of the Aspen Pharmacare.
It's a very humbling experience to be named the Forbes Person of the Year. I believe, like was likely said, this was a nomination that we felt any of the people who had been nominated could win.
Mwangi has played a critical role in transforming Kenya's banking industry, especially bringing into the mainstream the previously unbanked. To date, Equity is considered a market leader not only in Kenya, but across the East African region, thus putting him in a category of his own.
We may be the generation that is lucky to go into history as a generation that transformed Africa. And there is no better way of inspiring hope, inspiring people of the possibilities than sharing stories of what is happening in the continent, and particularly bringing us all together.
Under his leadership, Equity Bank today enjoys a hold of majority of Kenya's bank accounts, estimated at well over 7 million. Additionally, the bank has been credited with tailor-making loan facilities targeted at the low-income generators of the society. In a previous interview with KTN's Money and Power, James Mwangi attributed the success of the bank to thinking outside the box.
We believed and felt that if we did the things the ordinary way that they have been done, we would only have ordinary results. And that would not have helped our people. So we felt we needed to do things differently. And the only way to do things differently was to innovate, was to be creative.
A Bachelor's of Commerce degree holder and a certified public accountant, James Mwangi also holds 3 honorary degrees for his contribution to the Kenyan society. But with these achievements to his name, so have become global titles and recognitions, putting him in the international leagues of who is who in the world. In 2009 and 2010, James Mwangi was featured as the African Banker of the Year. In the period, he was also named a top 50 global emerging business leader. Earlier this year, James Mwangi was named Unsung Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Locally, he is the chairman of the Kenya's Vision 2030 board, as well as a member of the board of the African Leadership Academy based in South Africa. With all these accolades to his name, what actually pushes this man that is today considered the driver of the Kenyan banking industry?
The bigger you dream, it appears the bigger the possibility of the impact you would have in life.
And it is this that he has always said he wants to be remembered for.